So my role is a new one that was created in August of this past year. And the idea is to look across the entire university at a lot of the different things that were going on around entrepreneurship, both for students and for faculty members, as well as licensing and tech transfer, as well as industry relationships. And try to create a system that pulls together all three of those components to create a best-of-breed IEC system that increases the amount and sources of research funding here at the university, creates long-term sustainable industry partnerships that are more than just at the individual researcher level. We want to be able to go out to industry and present a picture of what WVU can offer to them, not just a single researcher. We want to be able to launch more startups and create spin-outs. In some cases, we're even looking at services that the university already offers to industry, and we're saying, should these services be spun out as a standalone entity? You can think of one good example is CPRC. So if you think of that as a service that's offered to industry as really a standalone entity, are there other things like that that we're doing here at the university that also can have similar success? And then are there institutional policies and processes that need to be put in place to enable all of that? And so that last bullet really hits at the tech transfer piece, which Gary's going to talk about. So as I mentioned, there's really three components. There's industry outreach, that's our external customers. There's new venture creation and support. That's one of the ways that we can spin technologies out, either as the spin outs that I was talking about, where you take an existing portion of the university and you create a new entity, or you look at an individual research or invention by invention process, and you say, how do we take that specific piece of technology and get it out into the real world so that it can have a broader impact? That might mean let's create a new company around it and find an entrepreneur to run with it. Or it might mean let's find a big company and license it out. And then the underlying mechanisms are through the tech transfer circle there. So that's the processes, that's patenting and licensing, and the contracts that are needed to support the top two circles. So if we look at industry outreach and partnerships, so since I've been here about 7 months now, there's really three big areas that stick out university-wide as the big areas of opportunity that we're working on. And when I say large industry opportunities, there's a ton of smaller individual opportunities when you're just saying this one piece of technology or this one invention could have an impact on society, and we should look at commercializing it. But when we bring it up to that higher level and we say, okay, what are the major areas of emphasis at the university where if we're going to go out and build a broad industry coalition around something, what are the industry sectors that we should really be looking at? And there are three that jump out where we've got a critical mass of activity here at the university that we really should be looking at a holistic level rather than piecemeal, which is what we have been doing in the past. And those are defense, energy, and health sciences. And within health sciences, services for pharmaceutical drug development seem to be the area where we have the most opportunities currently to be doing a lot of interesting commercialization activities. Not to say that there aren't a lot of other opportunities, individual drug development or medical devices and other things, but when it comes to sort of those big areas of opportunity that we should be capitalizing on right away, it seems like it's those services that we're already providing to the pharma and to the contract research industry, like CPRC, where we can be taking something that we're already doing and say, how can we scale this up and really address a big commercial opportunity? That's on the health side. Energy, I mean, WVU has a long history of energy research. We have a lot of little pockets of industry activity around the university. And so with energy, we're looking at how do we pull these all together and go out there with a single face to the energy industry and say, we at WVU want to be a good partner to you. Let's talk about how we can provide service to you. And then in the defense industry, it's something that really in some ways builds off the legacy of Senator Byrd and a lot of the things that have happened in the state of West Virginia over the decades, but that maybe now are almost little orphan organizations and initiatives around the state and here at the university that we can try to pull together around a single hub. And we're creating something called the Center for Smart Defense, which is going to be an industry-facing center of excellence. In that case, the industry is the military. And we're going to be looking at how can we go after major new opportunities with the military that can support research back here. The interesting thing about defense is that it cuts across pretty much everything that we do here. In one of my prior roles, I spent 10 years in the venture capital industry, and we invested in 150 companies in a 10-year period, technology companies that ran the spectrum from software and mobile apps to pharma, drug development companies. And I remember a company that came in to pitch to us, and the entrepreneur said that part of his commercialization plan, he was doing a drug for breast cancer, was to go after funding from the Department of Defense. And we sort of scratched our heads and said, well, why DOD? Why are you focused there? And this was probably 6-7 years ago. He said at that time, DOD was the largest funder of breast cancer research. I had no idea. I mean, that really surprised me. Now, he might have been wrong. Some of you might know the real stats, but here I was, just a dumb investor. Sometimes you have to take these things on faith. But, I mean, defense industry in general, they fund just about everything. I mean, from new advanced materials to electronics to software to food science research. At a university like ours, there should be a lot of opportunities to work with the military, and we haven't had a coordinated effort to go out there and see how we can do that. And so one of the first things we're doing here is setting up this Center for Smart Defense, and that's going to be something that hopefully you'll be hearing about over the next month or so as we start to ramp that up. A center of excellence might not be the best way to do all of the opportunities in industry sectors. I think actually in the health sciences, when we talk about those individual business opportunities around pharmaceutical drug development services, it seems like it's more of a cluster of individual companies that we should be creating instead of one. And maybe there's a unified marketing effort. If all of those companies are going out and trying to speak to the big CROs or speak to the big pharma, maybe it'd be helpful if we went out and presented all of that as, here's all of the services that we can provide. But I think there's opportunities to create large businesses in each one of those areas, whether it's something like bioinformatics, or if we're talking about maybe tissue banking or biobanking or stem cells, or if you're talking about something like CPRC or Phase 1 bed facility, or like what the folks in the Cancer Center are doing, which is setting up a statewide cancer network of all of the hospitals in West Virginia and trying to coordinate the oncology practices so that we can deliver a large set of patients to pharma when they're looking for sites to do new cancer research. So that's sort of and something I shouldn't forget. So in each of these cases, when we're looking at an industry, we're looking at it from an external facing role, which is how do we present that marketing, that business development to the industry sector. And we also have an internal facing role. In each of these, if you look across there, I've written in executive in residence. What we want to do is bring somebody from industry into the university so that they can walk the halls, work with researchers, talk to them about their research, and try to think about, you've got your defense guy with that hat on. Where could this research fit into what we're seeing as the needs that are coming from the defense industry? And hopefully there's a good dialogue between the external and the internal facing people here so that the external folks are constantly speaking to industry, constantly collecting those needs and understanding the trends and what the solutions are that industry is looking for. And the internal facing person is combing the halls here looking for ways that we can fill those needs. And at the bottom you just see sort of a list of partners that we're reaching out to, and in some cases developing some pretty good relationships with already. In other cases, it's maybe, so take pharma. We've got researchers that are doing things with individual big pharma companies in several areas across the Health Science Center, but they're not necessarily talking to each other. And if you get somebody coming here from AstraZeneca, you want to make sure that you're talking to them about all of the things that we could offer to them as a university, and maybe not just that one research project that they came to see. So, okay, so that's industry outreach and partnerships. Startup creation and support. So a lot of the startup activities currently sort of fall under the entrepreneurship category, and a lot of that is for students. So we're looking at how do we train our students across campus to think more entrepreneurially and to consider creating a company rather than going and just looking for a job when they graduate. And in the cases where you find students who are real innovators who have ideas for new products, we want to give them the support and the resources to actually turn those into companies. So we have something in Hodges Hall and the downtown campus that's called the Launchpad. It's really a resource center, mostly geared towards those students. It's a place for them to come in, and if you've got a team of students who are working on a new mobile app or something and they need to meet with a customer or meet with a potential investor, it would be nice if they had a place to go where they could have group meetings, where they could meet with someone who's done that before, who can advise them. And then if they need to raise some outside funding, it'd be nice if they had a professional-looking place to meet with an investor rather than having to do it in their dorm room. So Launchpad serves that role. We also we have a weekly student entrepreneurship club that meets in there. We bring in guest speakers to talk about entrepreneurship-related topics. And then we try to connect the students to other resources. We also do this I shouldn't make it sound like Launchpad is only focused on students. It's available to anyone. I mean, if faculty members want to, if they have an idea and they want to come in and talk to somebody about starting a company, we're thrilled when they knock on the door and come and see us. But we've noticed that students are more likely to actually go to the Launchpad, and faculty members seem to want you to come to them. So we're gonna work with that structure, and we're gonna go to the faculty members, and meanwhile we've got a resource center that's focused on the students. Future plans for the Launchpad, we want to hopefully this summer, add some 3D printing capabilities, some other equipment so that if you have a physical product that you're thinking of, you can actually do some prototyping. And the executives in residence that I mentioned on the last page, we want them to also be working with people who have startup ideas so that those ideas are directly related to those industry needs. And we want, it really needs to be an integrated system here. So that's the startup creation and support. And then my lead in to Gary's piece of the talk is to just talk about the tech transfer process. So tech transfer is the department here at the university that deals with licenses and patents. And so one of the things that we've done is we've looked at what is our existing tech transfer process and how can we make it even more related to those industry needs that we're finding. How can we assess the commercial potential of every new invention that a researcher might disclose to us and assess it right up front after an invention happens. We want to look at it and say, what's the best use of this invention in the market? What's the best way to take it to market? Ultimately, what's the value of this to industry? And should it be done through a startup or by looking for a large corporation to license it to? And then the rest of the process, assuming it passes that first test and it has some value, then the rest of the process takes it through the patenting and licensing process, which is where the expenses start to add up. So before we start spending money on outside attorneys, which is the rest of that process, we want to make sure that it's an invention that has potential future value for the university.